Nicole, real quick, if possible, could you post the agenda in the chat?
Yeah, I was gonna wait till everyone joins because I'll have to post it twice. But I will
Gotcha.
get that up there once we begin.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I never thought that quorum could be such a beautiful word. Thank you, Nicole, for letting us know that we do have quorum so we can get started shortly. Well, we have quorum. Let's get started if we could. I just want to say welcome to our Community Advisory Board meeting. I do want, as we go, as our process is usually, welcome when we do introductions. What I'd like to do is make sure that when we do introductions, that they are full introductions to let folks know who's here and who's board members. I take the full blame for maybe getting a little too familiar with this board, and it comes from a good place that I feel comfortable, and I know everybody around the table, but I think it is important that it is a public meeting, and that we do need to operate as if everybody here who's a visitor is kind of their first time. So it has been, it was brought to my attention that maybe folks didn't really know who all the players were and everything. We don't have our nice little name tags, our name tents in front of us in our seats. So with that being said, I guess we'll figure out how to get through these introductions if we could.
I can help with just the members. Do the members?
Yeah, the members.
Did you want to do the public as well and staff, or have them do their introductions in chat?
I think I'd like them to do it in the chat, but as far as the board members, full name and.
All right, we'll start with Ozzy.
Good morning. My name is Ozzy Carter. I am a CAB member. Also, I serve on the Policy and Budget Committee.
Hey, Shayla.
Shayla Bonner here, CAB member, also CAB secretary, and serve on the Policy and Budget Committee.
Crawford.
Good morning. I'm Crawford Carpenter. I serve on the Outreach and Community Engagement Subcommittee, and I'm the vice chair of that committee. Thank you.
Hey, Jonte.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Jonte Davenport. I'm the vice chair of the full Community Advisory Board. I am also chair of Policy and Budget.
Hey, Lila.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lila Blanchard, and I am a board member. This is my second year on the board, and I am the co-chair or vice chair of the Policies and Services Subcommittee. It's great to be here with you all this morning.
Michael.
Yes, good morning. I'm Michael Pitts, and I am currently the chair of CAB, as well as a member of the Outreach and Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Dr. Hernandez.
Hi, Dr. Michelle Hernandez. I serve on the board and I'm part of the Policy and Budget Committee. It's great to be here.
Nikenya.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nikenya. I am a board member of the CAB, and I also chair the subcommittee outreach.
Nicole.
Nicole's running a few minutes late. I posted it in the chat. She'll be with us in a second.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here. I'm here now, but I didn't get the question.
We're just doing a brief introduction of your name and who you are and maybe which subcommittee you're on, and some more of an introduction than just saying present.
Yes, hi, my name is Nicole Green. I am on the Program and Services Subcommittee. I don't know, for some reason you can't see me, so it's showing black, but I promise I'm here. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Cole.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Dr. Cole, Terrence Cole, CAB member. I serve on the Policy and Budget Committee, and I'm in West County.
Dale.
Yes, good morning. Dale Harrington. I'm an alternate member from Central County.
Mark.
I'm Mark Thomas out in Oakley. I'm an alternate member, and I'm sitting on the Outreach and Community Engagement Subcommittee.
I think that's all the members, Michael, that I have on my end. Not seeing Devon. That's it.
Great. And then if ORJ could introduce themselves as well.
Sure, Patrice.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Patrice Guillory, ORJ Director.
Monique.
Hello, my name is Monique Tate, and I am with ORJ, the new program coordinator. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Nicole Popchek. I'm also with the Office of Reentry and Justice. Good.
All right, thank you very much for that. And thank you, public members, for giving her your shout outs and your information on the chat. So at this time, we open the floor for any any announcements. Maybe that could be from the CAB board members or from anybody in the audience. Okay. Hearing none, we move on to item 2, and this is the opportunity for public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board, and it's not on this agenda. Okay, so our next agenda item is 3, where we're gonna approve the minutes from August 12th, 2021, the general meeting. And that is attachment 1. We'll give a couple moments for folks to look that over. And we'd be seeking a motion to approve if there.
Good morning, John Tay Cab. I raise a motion to approve the minutes from August 12th, 2021 CAB general meeting.
It's Dr. Hernandez, I second.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item before we vote? Oh, I lost you guys. Oh, please. All right, hearing none. I'm sorry, I lost you guys there for a second. Could we Could we vote on this, please? Could you do that?
Yes.
Nicole?
Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Jante,
Aye.
Lila,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Dr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Nakenya,
Aye.
Nicole, Dr. Cole.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And our next item, item 4, is to discuss the transition to in-person meetings after the executive order expires on 9/30/21. RJ, can you give us just a little background on what's going on with this? And then I know, but can we say for you can articulate better for the whole board, please?
Sure. So we received notice from the clerk of the board that the executive order is expected to expire on all public advisory board meetings that have been taking place virtually at this time. That will expire as of the end of this month. So that means that all bodies will have to meet in person starting effective October 1st. So that would, of course, affect the community advisory board meetings, which we all know has been very convenient, obviously, to be able to meet virtually. But we will have to move into more of an in-person setting. So our office has been working with the CAO's office to identify spaces so that way it doesn't interrupt at least your meeting date and time schedule, which is obviously you all meet, at least your general bodies are every second Thursday of the month from 10 to 12, and then your various subcommittee meetings that are happening monthly. We have been able to secure a space in the main administrative building downtown Martinez for our November meetings and our December general body meetings. However, it will impact, we will have to possibly reschedule the October meeting. Unfortunately, the room that we've selected is booked for your typical meeting date, for October, which I believe is the 14th.
Yes.
Did I get that right? Yes. So there's two things here. One, certainly want to get some feedback from you all about the feasibility of meeting in person, particularly in downtown Martinez, given that we're shifting. And then two, possibly rescheduling the October meeting to either maintain that to have access to that space at a time that it's available, or keep the same meeting date and time, but possibly looking at another meeting location. And this is affecting, just so you know, it's affecting all commissions, committees, advisory bodies. So this is not just CAB in particular, but it is all bodies. So if any of you are part of any other advisory bodies here in the county, you'll probably receive notice about those in-person meetings as well.
And Patrice, and is it the understanding that, I know there was some discussion a couple of weeks ago that they may, I know that the board of supervisors was going to a hybrid model. So is there expectations for us to be able to have folks be able to Zoom in, or are we just going back to the old way?
There is a virtual option that can be made available. However, with that virtual option, wherever that location is, and Jill or Alicia can correct me if I'm wrong here, or Nicole, but there will also need to be a posting at that particular location. So that means your location is open for any member of the public to also join. Also, in addition to that, my understanding is that advisory body members will have to be present in the actual physical location. So they won't necessarily be able to Zoom in. Members of the public will be can have the virtual option made available to them. Yeah, Jill?
Okay.
Go ahead, Jill.
So just to be clear, the current Brown Act or the Brown Act outside of the emergency order does allow for people to remotely attend meetings as long as there's a quorum of the body present in the room. And as Patrice explained, if you are choosing to attend the meeting remotely, that address has to be posted on the agenda and at the site, and the site has to be available and open to the public to attend the meeting, and they have to be able to see the meeting on a screen of some sort if they're attending remotely with you. And then with using the downtown space allows for that hybrid meeting where people from the public could then attend the meeting virtually and participate. But if the executive order doesn't change before the end of the month, the Brown Act does allow remote access with those qualifiers.
Hey, Jill, does the remote access have to be within the Contra Costa County? I was reading that the
No.
geographic location. Oh, it doesn't have to be in the Contra Costa County.
You know, people
Okay.
from, I mean, this has been happening for years at other bodies that, you know, somebody might be in Hawaii on a business trip or something, and that
Right.
address is posted on the agenda as an alternate location.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm never afraid to ask if I really don't understand. So I'm just gonna ask. So I just want to make sure. So in the past, before Zoom, so for instance, a subcommittee would meet. So usually subcommittees, smaller group, not so much public attendance. We would post it as required for that public meeting. So going forward, there would be no requirement to have any electronic ability for folks to attend that meeting, our subcommittees going forward. Is that true?
My understanding is an option and not a requirement.
I mean, the County Board of
Yeah.
Supervisors has turned to staff to determine how best to handle those advisory bodies. And I do not believe that there's been a report back yet because we still we're not clear on whether or not the executive order is going to end September 30th or be extended, or some form of other legislation allowing for hybrid meetings.
Right, but what we're operating under now, the idea that if the order is rescinded on September 30th, then like our subcommittee, it would just be a public meeting. Wherever we had that meeting, post it, and if folks showed up, they did. There's not going to be any requirement to have electronics, right? As it stands right now.
As it stands right now, no requirement.
All right.
So can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Nikin.
So as a board member, I'm also a parent. And even though, you know, I've noticed everything is like opening up, but there's still a lot of services for children that, especially like mine, that are not open. So I'm pretty sure I'm probably not going to be able to, you know, bring my son to these meetings. I don't even have a caretaker that comes at that time. So I would appreciate, as a board member, a option for, you know, people who still have to juggle being parents as well. Thank you.
I did do a poll that I can launch that would allow you to anonymously tell us whether or not it would be a conflict for you. I don't know if you want to try that or if that's even valuable. It would be nice to kind of know what we're dealing with, but we can also handle this offline. I think that the sooner the ORJ knows who it's going to be a conflict for, the better.
Yeah, and in addition to that, if there are many of you that would really need the virtual option, we would need to kind of think through where your virtual option location would be, because again, that's a location that is subject to the public entering and would have to be posted. So there's some other considerations too, that as you're thinking through what is most feasible for you in terms of either attending in person or virtually, to keep in mind and to let us know so we can help organize those meetings more efficiently for you.
And Nicole, I'm presuming you only want CAB members to answer that poll question.
Yes, sorry, I should have specified that.
I
It's just to
have
get a quick glance to see who, can you guys actually see the results right now in front of you?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
I'm seeing.
I can see it now.
So I have 15 answers. I'm assuming that's all of our 15. But we don't have 15 members, so.
I have a question, just a general question. With the meetings being in downtown Martinez, as a resident close to that vicinity, I've had times where parking was an issue because of the court proceedings and what have you. So I'm not really familiar with where this meeting would be held. Would you be able to give some logistics and give us some input as to whether or not the court traffic would have a bearing on us parking?
Yeah, so what I would say is in the past, prior to the pandemic, CAB typically took place at the probation department, but our chief has declined to manage all of the advisory or open up the space to host in-person advisory body meetings to include the CCP meetings, just because of the amount of workload and staff time that will be taken to sanitize. And the department also doesn't have the technology and equipment at this time to even allow for that virtual option. So, you know, in those olden days, parking was plentiful at that location. It's now moved to, and I'll just say this, we selected the administrative office, one, because it does have the technology available, and it was certainly completely open. So we hurry up and kind of grabbed quite a few of those rooms, not only for CAB, but for some of our other bodies that we staff as well. You're right, that parking is tough. And I could say in terms of traffic around, that's around the time of CAB meetings between 10 to 12, you may be okay. There may be some parking that's at a distance, so you may have to walk to the actual building. However, we're open to hearing other suggestions of meeting locations that you feel would be more convenient for many of you. You know, just keep in mind wherever we look, those specific buildings themselves may have, or those agencies may have their own sort of COVID-related regulations about hosting meetings or making their space available to the public. So that's the only reason why we went there. We felt it was like low-hanging fruit. It's sort of an easier grab for us to manage the in-person meetings and have a virtual option available. But we're open to other suggestions as well.
I would also just like to reiterate, for myself specifically, I am a disabled senior, and I do require accessibility.
I just want to acknowledge that Dale has his hand up.
Yes, this is a question for Jill. Jill, if there was a quorum in the room and there was another CAB voting person, in addition to that, could they be virtual and participate in voting, or would they be prohibited from voting because they were not in the room?
The Brown Act allows for participation of members remotely as long as there's a quorum in the room. So there is no inability to vote if it's just the posting requirements of the agenda.
Wonderful, thank you.
But with the idea that the posting requirements are where the person's calling in from, correct?
Absolutely. It has to be posted on the agenda. The address has to be listed on the agenda. It has to be posted at the site 96 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
And the site has to be open and available to the public to come in. So if it's your home, you have to be willing to allow somebody into your home to watch the CAB meeting and fully participate.
And you can imagine
Have a
there'd be
cat
some
watching party.
coordination involved with ORJ to get that on the agenda. So it wouldn't be spontaneous. It would need to be planned and.
Yeah, and it can't be your car. So that's not an option with the Brown Act.
Anyone willing to host cat watch parties?
Here's a question. Is there a limit to capacity for the room space moving forward in regards to how many people in the room? The capacity within the scope of COVID guidelines, or that's not an issue?
Nicole, you want to speak to that? Because I know you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you ask the question one more time?
I can answer that question. The health order does not modify or set numbers as far as indoors goes. So the meeting is not limited to numbers. The only thing that will be required is masking at this point in time of all members, regardless of vaccination status.
Thank you.
And Nicole, do you want to speak to the capacity of the room that?
Yeah, the room is a split room. It's like it's 3 different separate rooms, but I booked the entire space, so it's a capacity of 100 because I did not know if we were going to be limited to capacity because of COVID. So we have the entire space. So I feel like we're set up good for that reason, as far as social distancing is concerned.
And then so for October, we're a board without a home and a date is what we're talking about now.
So we are with a home, but not on the date that is typically scheduled for the CAB general body meeting. So we have 2 options. We could either find another meeting location in order to keep the October 14th date, or go with the room that we reserved at the administrative office downtown. But then we would have to change the CAB meeting date.
So I would like to suggest that.
And I just wanted to highlight, just for the poll that I did do, accounting for the members that did do the poll, we have at least 5 that are saying there's a conflict. So something to consider.
I have a question. You guys just covered this, but I wanted to make sure, like, with clarity. So there is no COVID related safety protocols with this transition?
Besides masking, I am unaware of. I will say that the county staff is required to be fully vaccinated by 10/4, with the exception of those that have a medical or religious exemption. So there's some, I guess.
So there's potential to be in a meeting with people that aren't vaccinated, and as many as could be, like, there's no limit or anything.
At this time, Jill, you can speak to this, but it's my understanding. I actually talked to the clerk of the board yesterday, and there's no directive right now to prevent people from entering a county building, requiring proof of vaccination to enter a county building at this time.
Yes, that's correct. And yes, Nikenya, the only health order is related to masking indoors. There's health orders specific to things like youth sports and swimming pools, but as far as meetings go, there is no health order prohibiting gathering and meeting. The only requirement is masking indoors.
Okay, good to know.
So I'm suggesting kind of going forward that that I guess we need to look at specifically. I mean, we don't have to do this during this meeting. You know, we have an agenda item that's talking about quorum. So one, to try to see if we have availability for quorum. Look at these dates. I think we have to talk to the members. So if it's October 14th, we need to figure out where it's going to be, correct? If it's
Yes.
another date.
We don't
then
have a
it would be-
location right now for 10/14, but we do have a location for 10/7, the week prior.
Okay.
So I can do another poll
Yeah, I think that's what we're
to launch a poll here for the next scheduled general meeting, new day and time for 10/7 at 10 a.m. to noon. Members only, please. But this will kind of tell us if we have quorum or not, or to be in person on 10/7.
And
Okay, so I have at least 10 individuals that are saying they can make it.
and there's also not to confuse this before we move on to the next agenda item, but then also, Nicole, is there some deliverables that week will make a difference if we should be looking toward later in the month? So
So the policy budget proposal, I'm sorry, the budget proposal narrative, we were going to provide a second draft at this time, the general meeting, and also a first draft of the policy brief. So it is crucial for the CCP budget timeline to have this general meeting before the next policy and budget subcommittee meeting in October.
which is the 7th. What is it?
10/15 is theirs,
Okay.
October 15th. And so we were going to have, it's essentially the big deadline that is really crucial is the 11/5 budget workshop. And I'm anticipating the Wednesday, October 27th will probably when we need to turn in our staff reports for the CCP meeting to get it on their agenda, what we're proposing for both any policy brief that's come out of CAB, budget proposal, and narrative for the community programs. Whether that work is done at a general meeting or a policy and budget subcommittee meeting, there's things that need to happen between now and then, decisions that need to be made.
So it sounds like that's what we need to determine if we're gonna have quorum for 10/7. And then also if there's gonna be any changes or any further information on limits on the amount of people in the room or any other COVID protocols.
So it
I've
looks
asked the
like-
clerk of the board several times and they've told me there is no limitations as far as capacity with the
Okay.
exception of the 100 people, but I don't anticipate that kind of turnout.
I don't know.
And based on the results of this poll, it's showing that we have quorum. If the yeses are reflecting that there's not a conflict, that they can be there in person.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and I would also say that for those who responded that they would not be able to make it there in person, maybe connect with us offline, connect with ORJ, and we can maybe brainstorm on some possible locations that are near you that might be convenient for you. That could also possibly be open to the public, and we can speak with those. I'm just thinking of maybe some of our partner agencies that would may be willing to open up their space so you can attend if there's a virtual option there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So it's safe to say that we can say 10/7 it is at 10 a.m. to noon. And then we'll partner with
Yeah.
folks
we'll go from
offline.
there.
Okay.
And I know there's no way to know for sure, but anybody here who might have some insight, you think we're gonna have to wait till the 30th to find out?
I think so. It's 10:30,
Yeah,
9:30,
no.
11:59 p.m. probably.
It's presumed that there will be some form of information that comes out after the 9/14 election.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it. Jill.
So it's safe to say that we'll look to having our next CAB meeting on October 7th at the downtown administrative office. Ozzy, I hear you. So I will check on accommodation, especially around parking, so that can be, so we can address that issue. If in the event we hear that the order has been extended, then we will likely continue on with the October 14th meeting with virtual.
Yeah, backup plan.
Yes, backup to the backup. All right.
Thank
Do
you.
folks have any questions about that? Need any further clarity?
Please, can you put the exact address and office suite or?
Yeah, I'll do that right now, but I will also be if this change does happen, we'll be also updating our Outlook invites as well to get you all the information that you need. But I will post it in chat just so you have a reference.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just also to clarify too, that the new county administration building is fully accessible and there is accessible parking available in close proximity to the building. It follows all ADA guidelines.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll be doing a dry run down there probably next week just to kind of get an idea of the space and the options.
Okay. So thank you. We move on to agenda item number 5, and it's to review some CBO's budget recommendations for the fiscal year 22-23. And there is an attachment 2. And I know our policy and budget committee put the invitation out, as well as ORJ. So I don't know, are folks presenting that, Patrice, or?
What's the official presentation that I'm aware of? It was more just for everyone to review offline and then ask questions if you have them here.
Right.
So if I can, can I
ahead.
set the context on this one a little bit? If that's okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
please
cool.
do.
So initially we did share out a request to all of our existing providers, asking that they submit some of their recommendations for what CAB might want to request and your budget requests to the CCP for the November budget workshop meeting. We wanted to be sure to clarify some things. The intent of receiving feedback from the providers was not so much for them to pitch a new program or anything of that nature, because all of our AB 109 services will be up for RFP, given that all of the providers are at the end of their 3-year contract cycles. So we wanted to be sure that folks understood that even though they're submitting recommendations, it is not necessarily with the intent that they would that their program is continuing for the following fiscal year, but it would at least give you all just some indication based on their experience so far of delivering their services for the last 3 years, what have been some of the gaps, the challenges, if the existing funding level is sufficient to meet the needs that they have seen throughout their time providing that service. So we submitted that clarification to folks, and we are welcoming now all of the providers who are present that would like to share with you what they feel your recommendation should be whether it's your overall CAB budget request or within the respective service areas that you would have to consider. So just wanted to kind of give that background and overview. And so now what we can do is, I see Nicole's put up their legal aid. They've submitted something in writing for you all to consider, as well as Centerforce. But then we also have folks that are present here who may want to give a verbal presentation on their thoughts and feedback that they would like the CAB to consider. So I'm welcome to go at any flow or any direction you like to go in, Michael.
So that is the question: is somebody from Barry Legal Aid here want to speak to this? Or if we're just going to summarize it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone from Bayer Legal Aid is here. And just to also clarify, we did give providers the option to submit something in writing if they were not able to be present. So that way it's at least something you all can consider in their absence. And if you have any follow-up questions for providers who could not be here, who did submit something, we can also facilitate getting those questions answered for you.
Yeah. So what we do have from Barry Legal Aid is a request or a need for expansion. And
I think that the addendum, because that addendum on page 11 came after Patrice's more clarifying email on the request, might be of interest, because that was kind of referring back to expansion of services with the anticipation of the housing, was it housing eviction moratorium coming to an end? So that was something that stood out for me as far as expansion.
And this information will be something that will also be looked at more closely in the policy and budget subcommittee.
Yes.
Real quick, Patrice, correct me if I'm wrong. With the email that was sent out, wasn't one of the main things we were asking for, in addition to everything that you said, was also basically the stats for what services was rendered? So we can have a better view for even for the RFP for organizations that might apply, or if when they do apply, we can fully understand with the previous funding that they were given, what actually they did with it for the services that they provided for the participants.
So in terms of any specific stats, we welcome them to consider sharing that in their presentation. So that way you can understand what exactly was the demand, the need, and what services were delivered during their time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
They did provide a budget after the agenda packet was posted. I believe they provided it yesterday, but we can review that further in policy and budget, as well as offline with working with you, Jonte, and ORJ on specific budget requests.
Okay, thank you. I think Jill has her hand raised.
I'm fine waiting until all the CAB members have their chance to ask questions.
Hear any other questions from the CAB members? All right, Jill, please.
So my question is, and I appreciate Patrice asked for more information because I was a little confused by their ask, but it says the number one on the clarification, it says they generally find they're able to meet community demand for the services for reentry. And it's not clear whether or not they want to expand their services to beyond the reentry population with this funding or just for that reentry population. So I'm just curious about that. And all those services are fantastic, right? And probably needed, but what is the funding just for the AB 109 reentry population, or is it beyond that? I guess is my question, but nobody's here to answer that.
So that's a question. You writing that down, Jonte? That's a question for us to.
I am too.
Thank you, Gina.
All right. So if there's no other further questions or comments, can we move on to Center Force? Please. Dolores.
And
Hello,
Michael, I
Dolores.
believe we have both Dolores and Cynthia on from Center Force.
So we're here if you have any questions to clarify anything that's unclear.
I have a question. So is this status quo? Is this the same budget that you was under the last contract, or is there an increase?
Yes, this is the annual budget, and again, the contract was 3 years, but my understanding in submitting this was for a 1 year. So we are recommending to stay at our same scope of funding
For those services, okay.
for the same services. The only difference, that we do services virtually. That wasn't in, our initial 3-year contract, but since the COVID, all of our communication and our classes are on Zoom. Well, we use Microsoft Teams. And in some of the locations that we are at, the staff can show up by appointment on certain days. Some of the offices do accommodate staff to come in and meet. I'm sorry, Cynthia, go ahead.
I just also want to say that we are meeting the clients in the community by appointment, whether it's at a park near their house or somewhere close to, we try to meet them right where they're at, face to face, as long as we can keep that social distance. But we are going more towards face to face at this time, in addition to virtual one-on-ones, classes, and couples enhancement.
Are there any questions or comments from the board members?
Yeah, Michael, I have a question for Dolores and Cynthia. Just a basic question with the 4 factors methods in your outcomes. Are you seeing small increments of changes, within your program, or large, due to, being online?
Terrence, I would say small. As we all know, there's a challenge for the participants to stay engaged. So we're working that, and that's our reasoning for meeting face to face, because we know that the trust that's built when we're face to face with a participant, it's lasting. When we're virtual, it's harder to achieve.
So we did submit a testimony by Monte P. of how he was able to be successful through the work that Cynthia and her staff have done. So that might give you a little perspective of the value and the outcome.
Thank you, Dolores and Cynthia.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
See Jill's hand raised.
Oops.
Jill?
Did I lose it?
No, you're still there, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead, Jill, please.
Sorry, I just started having a coughing attack. My question on Center Force is, it was mentioned that this is just a one-year contract. I thought all CBOs were going to 3 years, so maybe that could be explained why it's just a one-year ask instead of a 3-year ask.
Actually, I can clarify that. So yeah, this is in preparation for CAB's budget recommendations to CCP for 22-23. So even though they're submitting a request to, it sounds like, to maintain the same funding level for the next year, ideally they will still end up, if receive the award for the next 3-year cycle, it would be this amount times 30.
So to follow up on that, so presuming that at some point in time, we're going to be back to in-person services, does this ask, this ask converts to both virtual and in-person services?
Yes, Jill.
Yes.
So any other comments or questions?
Just one real quick, Michael, on the 21-22 budget proposal, I got Center Force at 94,000. This one says 126,636. Is it remaining the same, or is this an increase from that?
It is remaining the same. Our contract, when we received it, I think it was 5 or 6 months during the negotiation period before the contract was signed by the county. And so there was an additional $10,000 in savings, which we were approved to move that over. So it really came to that amount. Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Cynthia and Dolores.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you guys for the opportunity. We really appreciate being a part of services for Contra Costa County.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thanks, Janta.
So number 6 is discuss CAP current membership appointment changes.
Well, Michael, before you move forward,
Yes.
I know that I think that there are others that have joined. So though they may not have submitted something in writing, they may have.
Oh,
some
you're right. Thank you,
share.
Patrice.
Nicole, would you mind kind of stop the share screen for a minute? And then we can open it up for folks from other providers that may have some recommendations that they would like to verbally present. I ask that you either raise your hand or I guess just come off mute and jump right on in.
Hearing none.
Yeah, and I see no hands raised, so.
Okay.
We're more than welcome to move on if you like.
All right. Thank you, Patrice. So if we can move on to agenda item number 6. And we did want to discuss some CAB current membership appointment changes. So actually there's 2 things. One that basically the only report that was going to be from the CCP is that that Mark Thomas and Dale Harrington are officially CAB members. They were approved on the last CCP meeting. So that's really good to hear. Welcome you guys. And also, I think as I mentioned at the CCP, you know, both you folks kind of came to us where you were actually participating as public members with CAB and subcommittees before you even, you know, threw your hat in the ring. So once again, I just want to say welcome to the board and that you are official with us. So, and secondly, on not such a happy and elevated subject, we've had some struggles meeting quorum, and there are some deliverables that we're kind of coming up against the end of the year, and that it's important that we're able to meet. And we were policy and budget. We were playing the quorum game to see if we can appoint. Jill Ray was there again to explain, you know, the math, the nuances of, yeah, if you appoint somebody else, then the quorum number goes up, and it was convoluted. So what was decided, or yeah, what was decided was that we were going to make some adjustments on the appointments to the CAB subcommittees to assure that we have quorum going forward. There is a few of us that are timing out. So my assumption is everybody else is going to be here next year for CAB. And one thing that we have fallen off on is really holding folks to the requirement of attendance, and that's part of the sign up. You know, when you sign up, you're saying you're going to be here for at least, you know, the nine full meetings. And also, I don't know if we ever really pushed the idea that the default would be that you're attending your full meetings, you're attending your subcommittees. And if you weren't going to go, then show up or be able to make it, then that should be the anomaly, or you should let folks know. So the real importance of us getting business done, and the idea that, or the rule that as chair that I can appoint folks to the subcommittees. We have moved some folks around. And so just assure that really we can get business done. So my understanding, thank you, ORJ, that everybody who was directly impacted, that maybe would be moved onto a subcommittee, or was now you could participate, but you're not part of our quorum number. So we did make some changes in that area. And so, and again, this is just to ensure that we can meet quorum going forward. And that's kind of the information. I don't know if anybody has any comments about that or any input.
Michael, this is Dale. I was going back to your previous announcement about membership. Does that action mean that Mark and I are moved from the alternate status into full status?
No, so once you so officially, once CCP accepted you as, you guys are still on as alternates, but until CCP had actually okayed our recommendations, then that's when I mean is being official. So as we move forward, looking at gaps and openings, the process, if the board determines that one of you is going to move into a full voting member slot, then that is just kind of you know, again, shooting up just a paragraph to CCP to okay that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. All right, so, but again, going forward, I can't stress enough for us to get this work done, and that folks make the meetings that they're supposed to go to, and that as a board going forward, that we need to take the responsibility to make sure that when folks come in, that they understand that. And I don't know if I said at the full board meeting or subcommittee, and you know, I have been vocal about the challenges of doing these meetings on Zoom. And one of the things that I saw that, well, I can see now that really fell off, the fact that we don't meet in person. Part of our board meeting process was the sheet would come around, there's an attendance sheet, and the sheet would come around, and then you would initial for your meeting for that month. So it was clear that if you were you know, if you were missing meetings, if folks weren't there, you know, not really putting anybody out there. And then with the help of ORJ, you know, there would be those phone calls, those little reminders like, you know, hey, you know, you missed 3 meetings. So, you know, the next one by our rules, that we can just drop you from the board. So I just want to, you know, we're kind of on the home stretch for this year. I don't want to sound selfish and just, you know, worry about trying to get through these next 3 months while I'm still on the board. But, you know, going forward, I think it's something that is going to be important to reiterate to CAB members. So, and we did, and I don't know, was that announced at the last one, ORJ, that one of our members did resign as well?
No, it wasn't announced.
Yeah, so.
It
You're
happened
announcing it
after
now.
last meeting.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the resignation came in after that meeting.
Yeah. So Jerry Cohen, she resigned from the board. And so that's kind of where we are. So what these changes are affecting the subcommittee. So folks, like I said, folks know who they're going to be moving around, and there's been assurances of attendance going these last 3 months to, you know, assure that we have quorum and can get business done. Yes, Jonte. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand.
No.
Okay.
See Crawford's hands up.
Yes, Crawford.
Maybe just to piggyback on your concern on the next meeting for the subcommittee OCEC, we're going to be addressing our interviewing process. And in that process, we're going to be adding questions about attendance, commitment, etc., to get a better feel for the individuals that we will be interviewing. So rest assured, we're going to be following in your footsteps here, Michael. So that'll be part of our process for new members. Thank you.
Jonte, did you have your hand up?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Is there any other comments, or we can move on to the next agenda item?
I believe you have to make the official appointments that your changes that you're making in this meeting. Maybe I'm incorrect in that. I don't know if Jill's still on. She can clarify. If
Well,
we have to
Yeah,
call
I
out
was just
those-
wondering too, were you going to announce
Yeah.
who's on what subcommittee,
All
just as
right.
a whole?
And Monique, help me. I hope I have the latest.
I put it in the chat for you too to help.
Yeah, I couldn't have trouble downloading that one. So hopefully the one that I have is the correct one. So outreach and community engagement committee is we're gonna leave that with Nakenya and Crawford as the chair and vice chair, and then Mark Thomas is going to be on that outreach committee. And at that point, our quorum is going to be 2 for that subcommittee. I'm actually going to move to policy and budget, and that would be leaving Jonte as the chair and Ozzy's the vice chair. And at that point, the quorum for that meeting is going to be 3. And
Wait, you just said 3 names and you said the quorum's 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jonte, there would be Jonte Davenport, Ozzy's going to stay, Dr. Hernandez and Terrence Cole are going to remain. And
you're adding yourself.
And I'm adding myself.
So we're losing Shayla and Devon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And programs and services, Nicole Green is still the chair, Lila Blanchard's vice chair. Michelle, Dr. Hernandez is also on that committee, and as well as Dale Harrington. So folks that were moved off as far as the official members, the hope is that you would still attend. But again, these changes were made with the assurances that we really did need to make sure we had quorum going forward. All of these subcommittees are important. But it is clear that, there are some deliverables for policy and budget, and we can't have another situation where we don't meet quorum. Did I have the correct sheet there, Monique?
Yes.
Okay.
I documented it here.
Quick question for programs and services. Who is the 4th member after Dr. Hernandez?
Dale Harrington.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So if I can, I'd like to reiterate the Michael's final point, which is that if all members are welcome to attend other subcommittee meetings, if there's some input that you would like to offer. But again, the intent here is to just make sure that we maintain quorum for the remainder of the year for these subcommittees, because so much of the work is being done there. Every year when CAB has its planning retreat, which is usually used as an opportunity to provide an orientation to new members and to have old members be reacquainted as well with CAB's work and its process and plan its work for the next year. That's also another opportunity where we can move membership on the different committees around as well. So you'll have another opportunity if there was a specific committee that you really, really, really wanted to work on, you really want to be an official member of that by the beginning of next year. When we enter into our retreat, will be another opportunity for those changes to be made. So we appreciate everyone's flexibility and understanding and willingness to work with us, and so that way we ensure that work gets done and we can move along efficiently.
So anything further? Any questions, comments?
That's just a question for clarification, and it was related to Dale's question earlier. And so folks that are moving into the subcommittees who were alternates at the last meeting, are they becoming official CAB members, or are they on the subcommittees in their alternate role? And then if someone could just explain how that impacts quorum, that would be helpful.
So historically, the alternates have acted as voting members in the subcommittees. And so that's how we we move forward on this.
Thank you.
I actually gave a short answer to something, huh, Lila? I kept, that was it. Anything else? All right, thank you. And then agenda item 7, Patrice. Discuss
Sure,
formation
I
of ad
see
hoc.
Joe.
Yeah, before you go into this item, I noticed it's a voting item. I believe you have 11 members present and 2 alternates. So I think you have to decide which alternate is going to be a voting member on this item unless my numbers are off.
It was a voting member, voting item. Thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify, so when we have a vacancy, we still need to have someone vote on behalf of the vacancy? Is that right?
Yes, so you have an empty seat and you have 2 alternates sitting in the room, right?
Right.
Okay.
So one of those alternates, I think in the past, they've just sort of drawn the name out of the hat. I don't know how you guys have done it. Different people do it different ways. Or I guess the alternate representing that area where that vacancy is could be the voting member. I don't know how you guys have done it.
But quorum is still 6, right? Just want to make that clear as we move into the next month's making quorum, since we have 11 seated members, right? Or quorum.
Well, you have 11 plus 2 alternates, right?
Okay.
So technically
quorum.
quorum is still based on 12, right? If you had no alternates and just 11 members, that would be.
It would be 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, actually, I didn't think this was a voting item, was it?
This one was not, but the
I
next
didn't
one
think
is.
it was.
Your
Okay.
next one is, which is why I wanted to
Okay.
say it before you.
All right, thank you, Jim. Okay, item number 7, Patrice.
Yeah, so kind of following up from our last conversation, we felt that it was really important to maybe introduce the idea of now beginning to update our operating guidelines, which provide, or essentially serving as CAB's bylaws to really address the issue of membership and quorum, particularly within the subcommittee meetings. So we wanted to see if CAB would be interested in forming an ad hoc working group that would include at least a member from each subcommittee. So that way we won't run into any Brown Act issues there, to look at the language and see if there's room to really strengthen the language to ensure that there is some authority given to committee chairs, if need be, to appoint members, if we're running into quorum issues. Other things that might need tidying up now that we've kind of gone through a few months where we've run into a few hurdles around quorum. So that's what's being proposed to you all today. If you are interested in establishing a work group meeting, it would still operate publicly. So we would post those meeting dates and agendas. ORJ would take the first stab of looking at the operating guidelines and providing some edits that you all can review and give feedback on. And we can also establish a meeting schedule that is convenient for those who would be willing to join that ad hoc group. So I can leave it to, I'm open to any questions or any feedback from CAB members, and if this is a route you feel you'd like to go.
Real quick, Patricia, I think it's an excellent idea. Will these meetings be held in person or on via Zoom?
Well, if it's if it happens in October and beyond, yeah, it'll be in person.
Person, okay, all right.
Well, I think it's a good idea. However, I mean, just as Patrice framed it, it would have to be something that the board felt was a necessity as well, because we'd have to get some folks to volunteer to be part of that ad hoc working group.
Patrice, has this been done in the past, or this is a kind of a new idea for, overlaying just in case any gaps come up?
Yeah, this has been done in the past where CAB has called together an ad hoc group to look at the operating guidelines and clean up language, and then bring it back to the full body to review and approve as is. So it's to be expected, because you run into things as work carries forward and new members come on board where there may be some gaps in the language that you feel would be that needs to be addressed for subsequent CAB years. So it's definitely has happened before. And that's why it's established as an ad hoc group, because oftentimes the language is strong enough to keep going. So you don't need an ongoing committee, just similar to your policy and budget or programs and services where there's consistent work there. So those ad hoc groups are called together from time to time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just to add further clarification too, the advisory bodies throughout the county, all whatever 80 of them that there are, they go through a triennial review process. They go before the Internal Operations Committee, and they review bylaws, they review meetings, they review everything to just make sure everything is still moving in a positive direction and make any changes necessary. So this is very common practice amongst all the advisory bodies. This body doesn't do that triennial review since it's under CCP.
Well, I don't hear any other comments. So, I mean, I'll propose a motion that we schedule an ad hoc working group to review operating guidelines.
I second it, Mrs. Devon.
We need to appoint members first, or how?
Yeah, I was going to ask, we can have that as part of your motion, Michael, if there are members who would like to volunteer to be part of this ad hoc group. And then off the line, we can establish at least an initial meeting date to get folks together.
And how many folks do you think we need? Or
Preferably a member from each subcommittee. That way we can also make sure we have quorum too for the ad hoc group. And then also the input from each committee, I think will be important because I anticipate a lot of the language changes will have an effect on subcommittee operations.
And what is quorum for an ad hoc group, Patrice?
So we have 3, the ad hoc quorum, the quorum for the ad hoc group would be 2. If we have 4, it'll still be 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have 4, it'll be 3.
4, it'll be 3, excuse me.
All right. So going back, so I'll start off, I'll volunteer to be part of the ad hoc committee. So is there any other folks that know right now that they'd be open to being part of that committee?
Hey, Michael, this
I'll
is,
also volunteer to be a part of that ad hoc. Hold on. So if Dr. Cole will go, that's fine. You can go, Terrence.
Yep.
As far as policy and budget. Okay.
it'll work. Thanks.
Well, we would have two policy and budgets because Michael, you just moved yourself from OCEC to.
Well, let's see how our numbers go. Then I could just kick myself out. Well, it might not be an issue.
I mean, Patrice, can we have multiple members? Because I also would like to be a part of the ad hoc working group, despite Terrence and Michael there. So if we.
Multiple members can attend. Again, it will be a public meeting, but for those who will actually help to support quorum and will be voting to move the draft up to the CAB body. Again, preferably one member per committee.
Okay, thank you.
I'll volunteer for outreach and community engagement.
Teresa, I have a question.
Yes.
So I know in working with Nicole on the committees, it probably is better to have at least 4 people, because if it's 3 people, then 2 people can't meet together and talk. So maybe 4 people at least should be on the committee for the ad hoc committee. Just a suggestion or idea.
When you're saying if we have 3, I guess I'm not following. I'm sorry.
If you have 3 people, 2 people are quorum, so they can't talk to each other. But if you have 4 people, 2 people could discuss matters.
I don't think that's for open meetings, though. I think that's just for like if 2 people are meeting individually.
Are you in reference from the 2 people that are from the same committee?
I'm referring to the ad hoc committee.
This would be a committee in itself, right? Or an ad hoc committee. So 2 people talking, if the quorum is 2, that presents a meeting, right? A public meeting.
Well, the ad hoc meeting is, the ad hoc group is going to be a public, it will be a public meeting anyway.
I think what Nicole is saying, that these 2 people cannot talk offline if they are both part of that 3-person body, where if you have 4 or 5, the quorum is 3. So 2 people could go off and work on something together and not create a quorum of the body.
Thank you, Jill. I didn't explain it well.
And on that matter, would Michael and 3 people from the policy and budget subcommittee be allowed to be in this meeting together, since that's quorum for policy and budget?
Now that I don't have the answer to.
But Patrice, you're saying the idea is having individuals from different committees so that we can close the gaps on what's happening with the whole committee, correct?
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
Got it.
So if we raise it to 4 members, then obviously you would have 2 members from the same committee on the ad hoc group. And I'm not sure if we run into issues with it now being that particular committee in meeting.
My understanding it would, because that's what happened in the policy and budget on August, is that we had 7 people, and that became a general meeting because everyone was there. That was 7 for quorum for general meeting.
So just to be clear, policy and budget has 5 members. So 2 members from policy and budget could sit on this and not create a quorum of policy and budget.
Right.
OCE,
I had Jonte in here, so that was 3 of them if Michael joins too.
So OCE would be 1 member, and programs and services could have 2 members sit on there and not create quorum.
Well, but do we even have, even before we vote, I mean, do we even have folks that are interested and available? Because again, we're talking 2 people from 1 subcommittee. So we have 3. Crawford, myself,
And Terrence.
Oh, Dr. Cole and Terrence. We have 4, right?
I have Michael, Pitts, Terrence Cole, and Crawford Carpenter. And then Jonte's interested, but I don't believe all 3 of you can be on there.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay.
All right.
So we would need a volunteer from Programs and Services Committee.
Right.
Well, and also clarifying that this whole thing will come back to the full CAB membership. So everybody on the CAB would have input and say at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason we wouldn't roll with the 3 folks that stepped up is that we wouldn't be able to work offline because that would be quorum, correct?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I had the motion, but if we don't have 4 members that are gonna be on the ad hoc committee, then
I guess the question I have is, why does an ad hoc working group need to be a public meeting? Is that just standard, or is there such thing as an ad hoc working group that doesn't have to be a public meeting?
It's been our experience with CAB that they've always been public.
Ad hoc work groups of an advisory body are always public.
They're always
meetings.
public. Okay.
Yeah, you're thinking more like internal working group in a county division. That's something different.
Right. Okay.
And then the other option is you don't have to have 4 people. I was just suggesting that because of the, in working with the subcommittees, I noticed when it's 3 people, it just prevents you from working offline. You may not need to work offline.
Well,
this is Dale. I'm a new member on the Program and Services Committee, but I'm also a new member to everything. But if no one else from that committee is stepping forward, I'd be glad to be involved. I think it would be preferable if one of the members that's been on the committee for a while would be able to be on the ad hoc, but if no one is available, then I would be willing to fill that role.
So I
think-
apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say, I apologize for my delay. I was messing with my phone thing. I don't mind volunteering. But Dale can volunteer too. So it doesn't, if you're missing one person, I'll step in and volunteer.
okay.
I
Well,
will say the one perspective that Dale has coming in is he's new, and so he's been looking at these guidelines a lot coming in new. So that's one thing to maybe consider, having the perspective of someone that's brand new to the CAB, looking at these guidelines for the first time. Just a thought.
well, this, before I did a motion and we vote on it, so let's make sure that I understand correctly. So it sounded like to me that Dale said he would step up unless there was somebody who was more, that had been around, was gonna step up. And then Nicole said she would, so.
Okay.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, yes, you
correct?
did.
Is that good?
That's what I heard.
Okay, so I just wanna, so let's have Nicole, so my motion would be that we form an ad hoc working group. And that membership would be Crawford Carpenter, myself, Dr. Cole, and Nicole Green. And that's my motion, and that we would figure out the date and time to get this, to have this meeting.
I will second that motion, Mike.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Could you go through our list here, Nicole, for voting, please?
Yeah. Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Devon, Jonte,
Aye. Sorry about that, trying to hit the mute button.
that's okay. Jonte,
Aye.
Lila,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Dr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Nakenya,
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we'll get this handled. Thank you. All right, our next item is also a voting item. Oh, forgot, right? So let me Davis, Mark, you're East County, correct?
Yes.
Forgot that quick that so you're gonna be assigned as a voting member for this meeting. So we can add him on to that.
Okay.
So on the item before, Mark, was that a aye or nay on that item?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we want to approve the 2021 CAB Ambassador Talking Points. That's attachment 3. Kind of did some work offline with that. So I know all the subcommittees, they provided some ideas for talking points. The talking points are just kind of a guideline for us to take out when we start with our ambassadors to talk to elected official and department heads. So this is a voting item. I did work with ORJ and kind of look at what was recommended, cleaned up some language, took out some items that were not pertinent anymore to this board. And there are a couple of items on here that I wanted to get input from the board before we finalize this. Also part of, so this, like I said, this will kind of be your script for when we go out, as well as what will be coming to each of the board members is a template to request the meetings with the individuals. So we'll probably give you a reminder of what your assignments are. I'm sure there was going to be some changes because we did lose one member, I think, since we redid that. Have we redone it since then, right, Nicole?
We have not. So with the resignation, and then we have 2 new alternates. So I think we have plenty of individuals to send out. We just need to maybe restructure a bit.
Right. So what the ask is going to be today is if the board's going to authorize or accept these as our talking points as is, or with edits moving forward. So you have the 2 documents. You kind of have what we cut up and then what the recommended final product is.
Correct.
And just to kind of go over, we looked at again what was kind of done already. And also kind of a general theme was that in the past talking points, it was really asking for changes, transparency, and what we really did on this one is really soften the language to really acknowledge that there's been a lot of movement with the county and that every year CAB, one of their pillars is going to be just the AB 109 budget transparency and accountability. And there is some changes to where we were saying, we just really want to continue what's going on. And as you see in the red here, hope that we really commend and thank CCP and CAO for their timely responses to CAB's previous requests to establish process and policies that will improve budget transparency. And so can you go to the next page? So these are some of the changes. And then again, we just kind of changed some language. There was bullets here explaining what we really do, and talked about transparency and, what we're looking for, some plantation over and underspending. And we thought it was a little cleaner just to change it to what we had, that we're just going to support enhancing transparency and identifying instances of over and underspending. And we recognize the importance of linking outcomes and impacts. And, again, we changed language and we just eliminated some bullets. Again, there's talking more about the budget cycle, things we were really requesting, and pretty much, it has traction. The county's been great working on that. Let me see. Yeah.
You ready for the next page? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So
there were some questions here about some of the things we crossed off about
yeah. So my thought was that this call for increased capacity of Office of Reentry and Justice, this is my idea that they're all crossed out because, again, that was an ask on different levels in the last 3 years. So one was the codify ORJ, and then there was a question about funding for them and staffing. And, look at all these ORJ representatives we have in this meeting right now, and think they're trying to hire some more. So I feel like that's been handled. But that was a question that I wanted to make sure that was brought to the whole board. Is there anything else CAB would like to see coming from ORJ as far as supporting or recommended? And then our policy recommendations. And these are coming from some of the subcommittees, and some of the things that was on there before just never really got fleshed out. For instance, was expand the use of alternatives to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice. So the question is there specific examples? Yeah, that is the question. There's the specific examples. And one of the things I retained when I was taught well, starting with CAB, is when we start talking about these areas, is there something that the board is supporting in principle, or is there like a specific ask? And my understanding was that's what the question was regarding expand use of alternatives to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice. Is there like a specific? And then going down from our subcommittees and expand investments in employment resources and increase targeted support for individuals with disabilities that are also justice system involved. And my last, statement on this before we kind of open it up is that we also have to think is with these points, is that something that's going to be on our policy our policy brief. Our talking points are like the previews to a movie, the trailer. Our policy and budget, that's like the script. And so, you know, when I throw this out there, I know was mentioned investment in employment resources or target individuals with disabilities that are also system involved. Is that going to be something that's going to be part of our policy brief as well? And I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's all of the red line changes. And then the next
Yeah.
few pages are just showing you all those changes and accepted.
So anybody from the board have any questions, input at all?
I would just briefly say that, you know, I'm good with the language that exists there and then getting more specific, you know, with the policy brief or, you know, specific recommendations around restorative justice, et cetera. So I, you know, lean towards that, you know, thinking with this.
And do we have those? I know there's been some presentations done to subcommittees, but do we have specific examples of expansion? I mean, I don't know.
Not in that instance. No, we have general thoughts that there needs to be more, but not a specific recommendation.
Okay. And I see you, Jill. I'll wait to see if there's anybody else on the board. See your hand up. Anybody else? Yes, Jill.
So one question that I have is whether or not CAB would want to include in the expand the use of alternative to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice, to add in there something about as well as equitable access to those programs. You know, racial equity being a huge issue in our county right now. And you know, I know when these were developed, that wasn't really the conversation. I mean, everybody knew it, but that wasn't part of the conversation or the language anybody was using. So, and then the other one, you have expand investment, wait, where is it? The mental health one. Oh, yeah, expand investment in employment resources and community-based mental health services. And I'm just wondering if in that language you want community-based, culturally, and I don't know the word it's used, various culturally relevant, culturally, you know, however you want to use it, mental health services. I've heard it in the last week 3 different ways.
You said with cultural competency or relevancy, or however the correct terminology is.
Yeah, and Patrice could probably help me with that because I think it was used one way.
I was going to say that there's a number of different terms. There's cultural sensitivity, cultural competency, cultural relevancy. If you want to throw all of them in there, if you like.
Yeah, and trauma informed, I know is another.
Informed. Yeah.
So maybe if we flip those bullets and actually, I'm throwing out that where it says CAB recommends the following, that the first one would be the expand the use of alternatives to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice. And then maybe an eloquent, well-written sentence or two discussing the cultural relevancy or whatever the correct language is. competency for connecting with services and. Or do you think it's?
You might want to add a bullet point that just says, and to ensure all services have, racial equity or delivered with a racial equity lens or something along those lines, because all of those things, employment, housing, mental health, all of it should have a racial equity lens.
Thank you, Jill. I agree. Maybe that would work better, the bullet. And then any other comments, impact?
Michael, if I can just speak really quickly to the what was originally number 3 that got crossed out in terms of increasing capacity for ORJ. I do want to acknowledge that there was a recommendation from one of the subcommittees about expanding capacity of ORJ in order to address their data needs. And so I did want to just update everyone and share that we are actually intending to present to the CCP based on you all's prior recommendations around ORJ's data needs, to start talking through a little bit more about establishing a data strategy. So we can have, because it's one thing to hire staff and to make sure that we have like the internal capacity to manage data collection and analysis, but then there's also a need to develop a whole scale strategy with important stakeholders to know what's the kind of, what's the data that we need to collect on the population that we're serving, and also to begin looking at how we're measuring effectiveness across or against rather improvements in the actual population that we're serving. So, and in that discussion with CCP, we certainly welcome CAB's support and our development of that strategy and what that would look like. So at this time, there's not necessarily a specific budget recommendation or anything of that nature, but essentially the support of CAB and us developing a data strategy that will be really helpful to look at both the population, who are we actually serving, and then the services, if they're actually making an impact in the community, will really be useful. So I'm not quite sure if it should land in your talking points necessarily, but just know that that's how we're going about addressing some of the data questions that you all have had about whether or not ORJ has the capacity to address some of those needs.
Hey, can you scroll down to the finished product, please? Without number 3 in there. So, oops. Oh, then what did I just do? There we go. So the question before us here is, board, I would like to get this moving. So there is a possibility that we could vote on it with certain amendments, or the thing that I really want to just to get confirmed with the board here is one, going back to what Patrice just brought up, or would we have in our talking points? And it's something else that may end up being in our policy brief is to support a data strategy for the pool of services that, under ORJ's umbrella. I mean, that's a kind of a general ask. And also our last two bullets that are on the screen right now, expand investments in employment resources and community-based mental health services. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing from Lila, that may be something that would be on our policy brief. And the other point, the other bullet was increased targeted support for individuals with disabilities that are also justice system involved. So is that, you know, where the birth of that whole bullet point came from, and is that something that we have, well, some that we know where there's areas that there's deficiencies in the realignment for that population.
Hey, Michael, I agree. Can I just add one more thing?
Please.
I know that kind of expands the envelope, but without those, with those two involved, we have to look at the health disparities too that come along with behavioral health, mental health, as it deals with substance abuse usage, all those different things that come with the realignment, and dealing with diabetes, high blood pressure, these different aspects of health that may be a disparity for this community. Just something to just think about in reference to realigning the whole scope of this community and looking in reference to moving forward, in completing kind of the whole scope. So just wanted to add that to maybe another bullet point to look at the health disparities as we look at social determinants in reference to what Jill was talking about, getting the being more equitable for the realignment.
And Dr. Cole, would that fit under that bullet that's talking about with this disabilities? And
well, I think it would fit more with mental behavioral health for the scope of identifying kind of the core current items that falls up under dual diagnosis, with social dealing with alcohol, drugs, mental health, and medical, if there's any medical issues, dealing with diabetes, just different things in the scope of people having these chronic diseases that lapse with reentry.
All right.
So there's one way of doing that. We could, the last two bullets here, under number 3, CAB recommends the following, those last two sub bullets. We could separate out expand investments in employment resources, leave it as its own, and then include increased target support for individuals with disabilities that are also justice involved, with a specific emphasis on community-based mental health services and said treatment for individuals with co-occurring disorders, something to that effect. In other words, we can kind of expand that bottom, that last sub bullet, and then have expand investments in employment resources as a standalone.
That sounds good. So what I'm hearing, what you just said, also the idea that we talked about maybe a bullet for the cultural competency, relevance, racial equity, whatever that language might be. And with that addition, and also that I did raise the question that ORJ did, is if there would be a recommendation that we support data strategy for ORJ. Any thoughts on that, folks? Or do we just leave it as is and then look at if ORJ is going to be part of our policy brief. Well,
Last statement you made, I think, excuse me, Mike, I think the last statement you made sounds good in reference to moving forward.
You said it sounds good as far
As far as, adding to the brief and moving forward.
so what part? I kind of did a recap of things that we've agreed that we're going to add. So the cultural competency piece and the what Patrice just talked about with the expansion of the support for folks with disability, coexisting, et cetera. So I believe that I'm ready, prepared to make a motion on that for voting. So, and then I didn't hear any input, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about right now, Dr. Cole, but was there any input if we were gonna add back this section regarding ORJ and if we were gonna support their data strategy, or is that something that might not be on the talking points, but would just be in the policy brief if we decide we want to go that way? And I didn't really hear any input, so I was ready just to leave that part out.
Got it. I was referring to before the OJR.
Oh. Okay.
Forward, yeah.
Okay. So.
And Michael, if I can interject really quickly, just in terms of a matter of formatting, so that we can keep the talking points really tight, because you don't want to walk into a meeting with a whole big proposal in your hand as talking points. They're intended to be sort of like short bullets to kind of help guide your conversation. So in terms of including ORJ back in, it could be another sub bullet under number 3, if that would be easier for folks. And then in terms of your policy brief, all of these things can be included in your policy brief, but be expanded upon.
Well, so we're running against time here. So I'm not really hearing anybody speak up on that piece, Patrice. You know what? Here's what I'll do. I would like to on a motion to approve our ambassador talking points with the few edits that were discussed. One, that the cultural competency, racial equity component would be added on. Also, there was to expand discussion about the disabilities and coexisting and mental health on the last bullet. And then I'm also proposing that we add a bullet that we're going to support the data strategy for ORJ to pull to have input on the services. That's a long motion, but that's what I have.
I'd like to second that motion, Michael.
Who seconded that? That was Dr. Cole?
Yes.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Nicole, could you?
Yeah.
Please?
Ozzy. Ozzy, do we still have you on?
I'm here. I'm not really thoroughly understanding, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Shayla?
Aye.
Crawford?
Aye.
Devon?
Aye.
Jonte?
Aye.
Lila?
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Dr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Nakenya,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Dr. Cole,
Aye.
and Mark.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Motion passes. So, board members, once these edits are made, you will get this document, probably as well as a cheat sheet. I know there's some folks in this room that have had these meetings before. 40 minutes, usually it's about all it really takes. And then also, you will be getting a template for, to request the meetings. So we're all kind of using the same format to request those meetings. All right. And it looks like we're gonna move our reports to our next CAB meeting since we are running out of time here.
Michael, can I just say one more thing on the talking points piece?
Please.
We will we will put if it's okay with the CAB, we will include as an agenda item for your November meeting updates from your meetings with your ambassador meetings. So we hope that between now and then you all would have had your meeting scheduled with folks, and you know, we'll have some updates to share at your November CAB meeting. And reason being is that it's probably timely now to start meeting with folks in preparation for your presentation of your policy brief at the November CCP meeting. So you're kind of giving folks a heads up of what you will be sharing at that particular time. So it's a good time now to start scheduling, in other words.
And we also, we need to get out to you folks again. Hopefully everybody knows how they're partnered up for these, and that the hope was that you had someone who had done one before with you. I know there's some exceptions. I know Crawford took 3 and I took 3. So there's going to be some, and so we'll get that out to you. And then again, if there's any questions, we can talk offline. ORJ's open for it. I am as well, as long as it's not 5 people calling, right? I think we're okay. So we just want to make sure folks are prepared and ready to go into those. And looks like most of them are going to be on Zoom anyway. So, so with that, like I said, I think we're gonna item number 9. We're gonna have to move on to our next meeting. And unless there's any other comments from the board members, I was going to move to adjourn the meeting.
And the next scheduled meeting is October 7th.
Yes, and if you'll have difficulty attending in person, for those CAB members, please reach out to myself or Nicole, and we'll work with you to figure out how we can get the virtual option going.
And of course, we will let everyone know if something changes, the fact if we have to meet in person or not.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to adjourn our meeting at, thanks for everybody's input and patience. 12:03. See you folks October 7th.
Thank you.
Great meeting, everybody.
Thank you.